Moynihan. So the next step is for the board to appoint him as the top-ranked candidate to the Citizen Oversight Committee as the member seat representing real estate.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Lober to appoint Mr. Moynihan, and second by Commissioner Tobias. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, item J1. Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to briefly go over what this would and what this would not impact. This would apply to signs and equipment related to construction projects that use county funds. This would include road signs such as those near the Pineda Overpass, as well as park renovations. It would also include joint projects with municipalities when county funds are used. It would stop signs from being put up with project information or contact information from the department responsible for the project. I should have said it would not. It is stated in the agenda report there are several reasons related to this proposed change. First, it creates inequitable electoral advantages to incumbents. As we all know, name recognition is an important factor in political races. Having county pay to put a politician's name up on a sign in an area that campaign signs normally are not permitted is repugnant. Which gets us to the second reason. It's not even true that the commissioners are solely responsible for these projects. Every one of these major construction projects are the result of policy decisions made by the full board, which are implemented by countless hours of hard work by staff. More importantly, it makes sense that only citizens in a commission district are those paying. In fact, it's very rarely the case. Our roads and bridges MSTUs are at their limits, so these projects are often funded using general revenue or other sources such as gas tax, and not limited to the commission districts itself. When park MSTU money is used for renovation, it gets even more confusing. If you look at a map of our existing tax districts, these parks MSTUs don't line up with commission districts at all. So in conclusion, there is simply no good reason to put the names of the elected official on these signs, and there are plenty of reasons not to have them at all.
Commissioner Lober.
All right, I agree with you part way, but I'm not 100% there. I think, and again, obviously it's going to go the way that it goes, but I think what I would be inclined to do to address part of the concern is to say, you and I do agree, we should not have an individual commissioner's name on any project like that. But I'll give you an example. I pulled up, I'll send the clerk to add to the minutes as well, so it's not that we're hiding something up here, but I pulled up a photo that I took at Sykes Creek Wastewater Treatment Facility from the late 80s, from 88. And I noticed the names of all 5 commissioners who were serving at that time: Judge Roberts, or now Judge Roberts, Roger Dobson, Andrea Deritani, Sue Schmidt, and Thad Altman, as well as the county admin, utilities director, water and wastewater manager, and the engineering contractor. I thought it was interesting decades after the fact. I don't know whether or not someone would have tried to use that on a wastewater treatment facility as a means of campaigning. I don't think that you get more than 1 or 2 constituents going there anyway. I think if the concern is that one commissioner is going to take credit, put everyone on there. I also agree it shouldn't be a substantial percentage of the project cost. If you want to limit it at a certain dollar value, or a certain percentage, or even a fraction of a percentage of an overall project, I'm fine with that too. I don't think it's something that we should blow big bucks on, but if it's that important to someone, or they think that it's going to add to posterity, as I think that did, at least in my estimation, I don't have a problem with them doing it, but I don't know that I'm really there to go all the way to say under no circumstances should we ever have anyone's name associated with anything. I agree, though, that if someone's to be credited for something major that requires a majority of the commission, it should be the entire commission that's on there. And if you want to make a motion to that end, I'm happy to support that. But as far as restricting it altogether, I just think this may be more of a solution in need of a problem than the other way around.
Commissioner Pritchett. Oh, go ahead. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I just want to say I really don't know how to force this race. I don't think it's important. With all due respect to Commissioner Tobias, I know it's important to him, but to me it really isn't. But I would like to say that when I was elected, there was a practice in place at the time in the county that you folks may remember. At the entrance of
districts, there was a big green sign that said, you are now entering County Commission District D4, Andy Anderson. At the time, that was over Beachside. And, you know, Stockton had gotten 2 of those made for myself and had them up. And I saw them and I said, Stockton, that's a terrible waste of money. So I rejected it. And so I would say that the names on that Commissioner Tobias is mentioning, my one thought is that it gives constituents a name that they can reach out to if they have questions regarding that project. So he mentioned the one by Pineda Causeway, which has my name on it. I haven't gotten any phone calls, but that's my thought. If I'm a constituent and I don't know anything about who's in charge of a project and I see something going on that I would like to compliment somebody on or I have a problem with, if I see the name of a commissioner on that sign, then I can call that commissioner. Otherwise, if I was a constituent just seeing that sign about the project on Pineda Causeway, I would think it's like an FDOT project. Well, who do I call in FDOT? I wouldn't even know where to begin. So I think it gives the constituent a local name that they can reach out to. But again, as Commissioner Lober mentioned, we could put all 5 names on, and you know, then people can pick eeny, meeny, miny, mo. But it just kind of makes sense that the commissioner whose district it is in, that's the name that should be on the sign, or maybe at the top of the list of the 5 commissioners. So those are my thoughts.
Commissioner Pritchett?
When I first got in the office, they were doing a project and asked if they wanted my name on that, and I said no. But here's the thing, if you guys want to do it, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I know there's a thought of like candidate or whatever, but you know, you're not candidates, you're commissioners, you're over your district, you're responsible for a project. And my guess is most of the things that people will drive by, they see it, they're going to be really bothered about something going on and they want to know who to get a hold of, whether it's county level, federal level, state level, and that's a lot of questions that I get. We did put the sign up saying Brevard County Commission, so I've had a few calls about a few projects because they obviously know who their commissioner is, but not everybody does. I learned that from college students. I can ask them even who the governor is a lot of times and they can't tell me. So I don't know. It doesn't really bother me. I don't think it's really going to give you an up one as far as running, because by now, if your district that votes doesn't know that you're the commissioner, we've got big problems with the super voters anyways. But I don't care one way or the other. Honestly, it's not going to affect me, but I have no problems with you guys putting your name on your districts and areas of things you're doing. I think that might be a good thing for people to identify who it is that's responsible for taking care of their stuff. So,
Commissioner Tobias?
My thought is it'd be a little strange if we're concerned about contacting, yet there's no phone number. And let's be honest, while we have some brilliant people up on this board, myself excluded from that list, none of us are engineers. I tell you what, if you've got a question on what's going on the Pineda extension, I know I pick up the phone and call Mr. Denninghoff, because Mr. Denninghoff's got the answers to all those things. So if the constituent really does have a question dealing with this stuff, I'd say let's put, Mr. Denninghoff's home phone number and say, please call, 24 hours a day. But the reality of the situation is just campaign, and I appreciate the suggestion that Commissioner Lober brings up, but I'm on the exact opposite. That was the first question I asked staff. Please tell me my name is not up on any project. So the last thing I would see my name up on any project. I'd just assume have one name and not mine before I was to put my name up on any signs. I just think as we enter campaign season, the electorate certainly doesn't want to see tax dollars used, whether it's $1 or whether it's $100. I know the plaque that you brought up there, I imagine, was very expensive even back in the day. If it helps an individual gain one vote, I think that's an unfair advantage to somebody running against an incumbent. So while I appreciate the suggestion, it's not one that I would be amenable to switching.
Commissioner Lober?
Yeah, the other thing, and I just want to point this out, and I'll give a shout out actually to our county realty group that offered to pay the entirety of the cost. I think it was about $4,500. Can you give me a nod, Fritz, if that's right? I'm getting a nod, okay. To replace the signage on State Road 3, basically saying, welcome to Merritt Island. And one of the questions they asked of the office was, do I want my name on that? And I didn't want my name on it because I thought it was a little ostentatious to have your name on a big sign like that. So I'm not inclined to have, Brian Lober Bridge or Brian Lober Causeway. I just, that's not something that means a lot to me or really much anything. But I don't know that we need to go the step of saying under no circumstances shall we ever have someone's name on there, because if it's something, like I said, like on the wastewater treatment plant, I don't think anyone got one vote from that ever. I don't think that helped anyone. But for posterity, when I'm looking 30 years or 31 years down the road, which is what it is at this point, I think it's kind of cool to see that plaque there indefinitely. So you know who the county manager was, you know who the engineer was, you know who the contractor was, you know all the commissioners. I don't have a problem with something like that. And in the scheme of a wastewater treatment plant, I don't know if it was $100, $50, or $200. It was no $5,000 sign, though. I just don't have an issue with that. And especially when we have outside groups that are sometimes willing to step up and offer to pay or defer some of the cost for doing that. If it costs us nothing and it puts everyone's name on there, absolutely everyone in any way involved, I don't view that, especially when you're talking about a location like that, I don't view that as something that's giving anyone, forget an unfair advantage, but any advantage. If anything, you might lose a vote because people associate your name with the wastewater treatment. So, and say, okay, well, what do they process here? Well, maybe that's what the politician is comfortable associating with. I don't know.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I would also just point out that signs like that, that are project signs, they're informational signs. And that's the way I think most people view them. They don't view them as a political sign. They're an informational sign. And they're telling people what the project is, who's in charge of it, and who the local commissioner is that you can reach out to if you have any questions.
Commissioner Pritchett?
These are those wooden signs that they put out at projects anyway, so I guess it would just be the individual commissioner, whether they want it there or not. My story is there was a sidewalk project, and they had it up there in Brevard County. Do you want your name on it? No. And it was right when we got in office, and someone called up, just mad they're spending money on that. And I said, well, that's Robin Fisher, man. He did that on his way out. So that just kind of worked with us a little comically. But I think most of the time it would be informational. So I don't mind whatever you guys want to do. I just think that you're already sitting commissioners. You already got a one-up anyways, and you guys are incredibly good at your job. I can't imagine anybody even wanting to run against any of y'all anyways, but I don't think that would really make a lot of difference in this climate. So again, whatever y'all want to do is fine with me. Again, I don't do it, but that doesn't mean you can't do it, and I don't judge you for doing it or whatever. It's just informational. Matter of fact, on some of them, I'd rather throw Fisher's name back on it right now. So that's all I got to say with it. But I'm with y'all, whatever you do. It just doesn't matter.
Madam Chair?
Yes? Commissioner
I would
Smith?
just also like to point out that sign at Pineda that has my name on it, nobody asked me if I wanted my name on it, and I didn't tell anybody to put my name on it. The first time I saw it was the first time I knew that my name was going to be on it, just to set the record straight.
Yeah, I wouldn't question that, Commissioner Smith. I would just say, I think that there's a little confusion here on talking about which types of signs. I think, as far as plaques dedicated, a project that's dedicated is a different kind of sign than a sign that's just an ongoing construction project, because they do it all over Brevard County, and that is so you do know who to notify if it is specific to your district. Like, I know, like within the city of Palm Bay, they list everybody on the council because they don't have districts, but they do that to let the public know. And you have to notice. So that sign is already paid for. The only thing different is the graphic. So I don't have a problem. I want people to be able to call me if they don't like a project that's going on in my district. I want them to know who their commissioner is to call. I mean, you could Google somebody's name. It doesn't have to have the phone number. But as long as it's a project sign that already has to be funded, not anything new, not a, welcome to my district sign. That's unnecessary, and that is a little bit unnecessary, completely unnecessary. And I wouldn't want to definitely support anything like that, but I don't want to put plaques up either. I think the project signs are important so people know who to call if they have an issue or if they have a question. Because they don't know John Denninghoff is our deputy, and some people still think you're the head of Public Works. I think we sometimes still think you're the head of Public Works. So I'll obviously reach out to you if there's something that's changed with the project, but if we were the ones that were elected, we're the ones accountable to those residents who have questions. So if we're paying for the sign already, then I'm okay with our names being on there. I don't think it gives anybody, if you've ever seen campaigns, season, I don't think it's ever given anybody a political advantage to having your name on a Greene County required sign for a project. So if it's a required sign, I'll support it. Otherwise, I'm okay with eliminating all others. Did I make matters worse? Did I confuse matters worse? Okay. All right.
I'd like to call a question. Do we even have a second on this?
I don't think there was a motion made yet, Commissioner.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, it's clear that this board doesn't want their name up there anywhere, but they also don't want a policy that limits their name up there, which I don't understand. It's also clear that there's not going to be a second on that. I would just please ask that staff, as you move forward, whether the sign is necessary or not necessary, whether it's a dedication of a road, a sidewalk, or a wastewater treatment facility, please do not ever put my name up there in any circumstance whatsoever. It's a waste of dollars, and I think, again, it adds a electoral advantage, whether you drive by it once or whether you drive by it 50 times. I think it's obscene. I think it's wrong. I think people have in the past and probably will in the future take advantage of it. I don't think anyone here would do that, but I think that's the reason we have a policy that future commissioners who very well may make bad decisions would not be allowed to. So,
And Commissioner Tobias, I'd be okay with a brand-new policy on limiting all that stuff except for required mandatory projects, not dedications to sidewalks or parks or anything like that, but there's things that we are required to public notice. So I would be okay with that. I mean, I would be okay supporting eliminating anything else. But as far as, again, if you have a big construction project, I want people to be able to reach out and ask questions.
And those are
as do I, but the people that are going to answer those questions, let's be honest, are
Well, I'm not going to give
staff.
them John Denninghoff's phone number. They're
Well,
going to call my
we
office.
We can say Public Works. Here's the phone number. The
Yeah.
reality of the situation is,
But
those
the
are
buck
folks.
stops with us every time, so we're the ones required to answer.
And the constituents, they should know that. We're the
Right.
policymakers. We're the ones that up there. But I feel bad for the folks running against us that have to drive by those signs and see our names up there each and every other time. Well, see, we have a mayor who decided to name the city hall after her. I mean, we certainly have some abuses of power by people's names. Now, it has not happened here, but there is a precedent of this type of stuff happening. So
I hope if you ever see a sign, even if it's accidentally, I don't think the county staff would do it, but if you ever see a sign with my name on it that's inappropriate, please let me know. The first thing I did when I came in office was got rid of the commissioner's parking spot. So that's how I feel about it too, because I don't think we deserve any special privilege. So anyway. Commissioner Lober?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, the other thing, if it doesn't sound like you have support to do everything you're looking at, if you want to have a % and/or a dollar value cap for signs that include names, I'm happy to support that if you think it's something that's really subject to abuse. But, I don't know if you have an interest in doing that or not. Okay.
Yeah. All right, J2. I think you'll get a lot more support on this one, Commissioner Tobias.
ready, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm going to bring this one up, realizing that this too may make me look like a bad guy. You can accuse me of being heartless or against little children. I guess you've had that one in the past, or puppies, because I don't want to place quantitative limits on some of these resolutions. This is not why I'm bringing this forward. In fact, I think it is a serious issue that has to do with fiscal responsibility. I recognize that resolutions, awards, and presentation section of our agenda serves an important purpose. It allows an opportunity for groups, both government and private, to present information to the board. It allows us to recognize current and emerging leaders of the community or people that have made a singular impact. It gives us an opportunity to spread awareness on topics of great public importance, such as cancer screening programs or legislation that has an impact on this county. Yet, like most everything else, there's a cost. We have uniquely qualified and a very effective staff. Every minute they spend here, they could be bringing to bear their skills and experience on matters of importance to the county as a whole. Even more concerning is the cost, money for a lot of members of the public to be here while they wait to hear their agenda item that concerns them, whether this be an issue with an easement, an ordinance, or even just wishing to give public comment. Many of these people are taking time away from their jobs and families to become involved, and this is something I respect enormously. This resolution does not stop any commissioner from introducing any resolution they can today. If a commissioner would like to introduce a resolution to honor a longtime employee, or a resolution about disease awareness, or resolution recognizing Taco Tuesday, they still can do that. All this resolution does is ask that we take a step back and think about which of these are really important to us individually and prioritize. If each of the 5 commissioners use their allotment of 12 per year at 5 minutes apiece, this would still be 5 hours a year. So far in 2019, we have increased our rate of resolutions year to date by 35%. I would argue that that through this process, this resolution introduced will have an even greater impact because they will not so dilute the process. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias. Do I have a second? All right, I'll second for discussion. Pass the gavel just for that second, and I'll take it back. Commissioner Lober?
All right, perfect. So my thought is I'm partway there with you. One of the concerns that I have with respect to what you just proposed is the limit of 12 a year. I don't think it's necessarily a bad limit, but I don't think anyone on staff should be responsible for tracking that. If you were to say, on the other hand, limit of 2 per meeting period, I'm fine with that. I would support that all day, every day. If you want as well, I would be fine either saying 2 per meeting period, or alternatively 2 per meeting on the front end, along with awards presentations, things of that nature, and anything over and above on the very back end after quite literally everything else is concluded during the meeting. I think that would have a chilling effect on people going overboard on the resolutions. But I don't know that we should put staff in a position where they have something else to track. I think that's something that could potentially get out of hand as far as tracking the 12. If you want self-certification and you want to propose that in some way that we're able to follow, I could entertain that, but I think having staff track 12 per meeting is perhaps not the best way of accomplishing your goal. And I will say, I don't know that I've had any meeting in which I've put on more than 2. A lot of meetings I have 0, some meetings I have none. I think it's a good idea, but I think that perhaps it's a little bit overly stringent in how it was phrased.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
We don't need any extra work. The clerk already does this. The clerk already has the breakdown of the resolutions and presentations for fiscal year 18-19. You can pull it off the website and get it right there.
I learned something.
Yeah, there's no additional. My office took a little time to find out how many minutes had gone on, which is not in the report that we get from the clerk's office, but keeping track, 12. I wouldn't care, in all honesty, if one member brought all 12 up in one meeting. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is when we have, 7 one meeting, 5 the next, 3 over, and leave it up to the commissioner to decide of which of the 12 resolutions are most important to him or her. That would be the last thing I'd want to do, is limit it to a certain number per meeting. Some things are timely. Of course, there are certain clauses in here for, fallen first responders and service members as exceptions. But I think keeping track of 12 is not a big task, either by staff or by the clerk's office.
If it's not creating a new burden, I don't have as much of a problem with it as I thought I would.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Madam Chair.
Oh. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in on this. I, like the last issue, I don't really have a dog in the hunt. If the board decides they don't want to do this, I'm okay with that. Ironically, when I took office, probably the first meeting I was sitting in my chair, I raised this very issue because to me, it seemed, I had been to 2 commission meetings prior to my election, and it just seemed to me, as an outsider, that it was almost a waste of time for the commission and all the employees and staff to sit through that process. But as it was explained to me, and I finally got to the point where I agree, we have a large county here. We have almost 600,000 people, and there are a lot of good people in this county that do a lot of good things. And I think we should be encouraging people in the county to continue doing good things, and one of the ways to do that is to recognize them publicly. It's very, very important for a Boy Scout that achieves the Eagle Scout. It's very important that we get recognition for a company that's spending a lot of money to start a new program here, like a fertility clinic. That goes on and on and on. So that brings me to who's going to be the resolution czar to decide that this resolution doesn't qualify and this one does. This is a good resolution and this is a bad resolution. I think that's a dangerous step that we would be taking. And so then if you get to your limit, who gets to tell the Boy Scout that, well, other Boy Scouts were recognized, but we're over the limit, so we can't recognize you? I think that's a slippery slope that I don't think that I would be supporting. So I just think that it's important for the community, and in view of the fact that we have 600,000 people, if we recognize 60 or 70 people a year, I don't think that's a big deal. And as far as cost, most of our staff, if I'm not mistaken, they're on salary. So if they're there for 12 hours a day or 6 hours a day, it costs the county and the taxpayers the same amount of money. And when they decided they wanted to work for the county, they signed on for that. And I just don't think that's an issue.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Just a thought. I have a hard time when I have to read those things. I get nervous every time anyway. So, but I do enjoy being able to give people things. So just on that. And then, we look at the numbers for last year, and when you're chair, you get handed the county-wide resolution. So that's kind of your job to pick up all the others that aren't specific to a district. But here's something, if we did just 12 a year, we have 24 meetings a year. So even if you try to do 2, that's 48 resolutions in a year if you're allowed to do 2 a meeting. But I understand the problem because we're sitting in some of these meetings where we're having like 15 resolutions, and it's getting to be a little much. I was actually interested when I first came on because I came from city government, and we didn't do a lot of resolutions, but we would do awards and presentations. So it kind of interests me how everything became resolution when we came to the county. But again, on that, I understand the importance of it to the community. And again, I think the Eagle Scout, it's a wonderful award to give them. And who has Satellite Beach? You do?
No.
Commissioner Tobias, your cross-country team for Satellite just won state.
That'd be, though I'm a graduate of Satellite Go Scorps, that would be Commissioner Smith.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but, something like that significant. And you have 30 young people come in here, and they're being introduced to government, too, which I think is really important because we have a disconnect right now with a lot of our youth. So I don't know how to do this. I do agree that there's some meetings we're getting a little out of hand with some things. I mean, there's some things that possibly shouldn't be brought as a county resolution, but some of these that are actually pulling in county projects that are very noteworthy, I think are kind of important. So I don't know what you want to do to maybe put maybe we should just put some little bit more restraint on ourselves on what we're bringing, but I don't know how to do this in a way that we're not actually affecting the public and the government. I just think it's healthy. So I don't know what to do, but I do think we've got a little out of control with some things. But again, I'm probably not going to vote to support this the way it's written, but not that I enjoy reading them, but I think they have a great importance in our county with pulling in public participation.
Commissioner Wilbur?
All right, I've thought about this a little bit over the past couple minutes, and listening to Commissioner Smith and Pritchett. I agree, Commissioner Tobias, that we need to do something and that it's appropriate to do something to limit them in some way, because it's gotten to the point where it is a bit excessive in aggregate. But when I look at what really constitutes the problem, it's not the number over the course of a year, it's how many we have in any one commission meeting. So in my mind, again, I go back to some reasonable limit per commission meeting. And I think saying 2 per meeting is a reasonable number. I can't think of a time where I've ever put more than 2. I'm not saying there hasn't been one instance, there might have been, but I struggle to think of any time I've had more than 2, or even 2 is not frequent for me. But that said, if someone really feels strongly that Boy Scout needs a resolution and they're pushing up to 2, and it's not one of the 2 that they prioritize on the front end, I would say make them wait until after board reports and do it at the very back end of the meeting for anything over 2 per meeting. I think that's kind of a middle ground where you accomplish in part your goal, and you also don't overly restrict things. So you say, okay, you really need to prioritize things and figure out what's worth spending the time on, so that we can avoid some of these 6+ hour meetings where we've got 15+ resolutions on the front end. I think that's really the problem, and it's unfair to the folks that have business during the course of the meeting to have 15, 20 resolutions on the front end, and that's really who it's hurting the most, not the folks that, well, I'll leave it at that. I think, I've made the point. I don't want to get circular.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Smith?
is the suggestion that we have 2 per commissioner a meeting, or limited to 2 period?
2 per commissioner per meeting. Anything over and above that, I don't have a problem with the remainder. If you have 3 or 10, do it on the back end of every meeting, because quite frankly, there are going to be so few people here at that point. I think that people are going to self-police and not put much on the back end of the meeting, but it gives you an out so that if you do hit 2 in a particular meeting for whatever reason, and there's something that's really that meaningful to you, you can still get a resolution passed.
Well, I think that's a good idea, but here's an issue that comes to mind. Suppose you have 3 that are time sensitive. In other words, it's a resolution involving something that's like Real Men Wear Pink. That's the month of October. Or Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That's October. And there's a third thing that might be the Eagle Scout. Maybe we could reach out, if it's in my case, maybe I could reach out to you or somebody else on the board to see if you would want to do my third one if you didn't have 3. I think that would be workable. But I think it's also a noble idea, and I think it's a great idea to try and limit meetings. But we can self-police ourselves and do that by not repeating ourselves, by not repeating everything that somebody, when we get 30 people up to speak, we don't necessarily need to have a commissioner repeat everything that was already said in the interest of saving time. So I think we can police ourselves and shorten these meetings if that's really the goal.
Commissioner Tobias?
And I'm not aiming to be the resolution czar. I think that we as adults can make a determination of which 12 are most important to us. And because staff is paid doesn't mean that staff doesn't have a family. Each and every minute they spend here is 1 minute less they're spending with their family, and saying they're getting paid the same, I think is a real, I don't think it was meant that way, but I think it was a slight to the hardworking staff that go above and beyond day in and day out. And I misspoke, I apologize. My staff informed me that that was the county manager's office again that got us the list of resolutions that had been passed. Yes, we could control ourselves, but we don't. Let's be honest. D1 15, D2 11, D3 5, D4 30, and D5 20. So, yeah, we could, but the reality of this issue is it's 35% higher year-to-date than it was last year. So, you know, at this...
And
at
it's a
this-
little different when you're chair, because you kind of get, stuff that gets memorialized is almost expected of you to do. I'm not saying that it's right. And Commissioner Tobias, I am with you. I would go so far as to say 10 apiece, because I am completely on board, and we have the most ridiculous resolutions sometimes. And I won't mention one or two because I don't think that's fair. But I think it really minimizes people's accomplishments when we start having these some of these silly reasons to have these resolutions. And I'm with you. And you say they have family time. I would argue that during the day or during our day meetings, they could be doing work instead of being stuck here through our 45 minutes of resolutions, because they are far too long. And we could even put them on the consent, you know, and have commission pass them on consent, you know, if we had additional ones, and we could present them to them at their school, at their organization, at their, you know, and that way it still is impactful, but we're not wasting everyone's time here, you know, in the same manner, only because there are people that have other places to be too. Like, everybody's time is valuable, and it's hard to say whose is more. So Commissioner Tobias, I would be on board with 12 or even 10 limit to resolution. And if you have something important, if you have an Eagle Scout that needs a resolution, just during commission business, say, hey, I got an Eagle Scout. Can we make an exception? I don't think anybody up here would argue for that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd be happy with 0. I thought 12 was meeting in between 0 and the obscene number that we have now. But I'm not gonna lie, I'd be okay with 20. I've been authorized to go to 20. I think 20 is an absolute crazy number.
20
but
per commissioner?
20 per yeah, and we
I was the chair and I had 20, and I still think that's too many. It's way too many.
I think 10 is too many.
I'm going to vote against it just because you're going back on what you asked for.
I think 0 is what I want, but here in the spirit
It
of
should be 10 to 12, because it is ridiculous, the amount of time it takes. It's ridiculous the amount of time we're taking right now to talk about it. I mean, but again, I think there's government business, and you have to find that balance with supporting members of the community. And sometimes our resolutions, and I see staff smiling, but I won't call you out, because you know I'm right. We're wasting everybody's time when we have 15 resolutions on there and I won't even give an example because I don't want to. But you know who you are if you've gotten one. I think recognizing a team that wins a state championship is wonderful. So I wouldn't even say that's a bad one. That's a good one. But I'm saying, because that's an event that those kids will remember too, that their government recognized them and that we appreciate all the hard work, and that's a community thing. But some of the stuff we do is just a little bit crazy.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Smith.
Well, two things. I agree, and with Commissioner Tobias when he says that, and I think it was, I don't remember who, but talked about our staff, and they have homes and they have families, and that's true. So when we keep them till 11 o'clock at night because we want to beat to death like we're doing just now, a subject matter, I think we should be thinking about that. We're taking them away from their families. They all have work to do. They all do a good job. They all have important things to do. But part of their job is to attend these meetings. And so if we make them long by beating things to death, we're more responsible for them being out until 9 and 10 and 11 o'clock at night than any 5 or 10 resolutions. That's one. Two, how about if when a commissioner has somebody that's asked for a resolution, why doesn't that commissioner at the very next meeting during his board report mention the fact that he or she has this particular resolution, and let's take a vote as to whether we should do a resolution. So the 5 of us can vote and say, yeah, that's a good idea for a resolution, and don't put numbers on them. That's another idea. And then all of us would be on record as saying, nah, that's not important, or this is important, as opposed to one commissioner making up his or her mind that it's important.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Yeah, this is tough. I think that it's gotten abused a bit, and if it hadn't gotten abused, we wouldn't even have to have this conversation. But I don't think I'm the one abusing it.
No.
But the thought is I hate putting stipulations on you guys because you're elected officials. And you have a community you have to represent, and if you feel a real need to have to do this in your community, I hate being the one to set up rules to tell you you can't just serve your community. But on that, I just wish it hadn't got abused and it wouldn't be a conversation. There are a few resolutions, I don't even know why we're doing resolutions on them, but we've sat and got through them. Even from commissioners don't give a lot of resolutions, some of the ones they give, I'm thinking, oh well. So I think everybody's guilty of that one way or another. But again, I'm concerned when we start putting stipulations on you guys of how you're serving your community. But we do have a problem with abuse. I kind of like your idea of the consent agenda on some items that we wouldn't necessarily have to do publicly. But I don't know how to get there, how we're going to pick the winners and losers. That's one of your favorite phrases of trying to figure out what's worthy of a resolution or not worthy of a resolution. I think probably every Eagle Scout's worthy of one. They've worked so hard, and it's a great accommodation to them and their family. I think these schools that are winning state titles, I think that's another one. I think the space one we did tonight was marvelous. But again, I don't know how to do all this. Again, there's 24 meetings a year, and if you do 12, a commissioner does one a month. And we've had one as chair where I've gotten two that were time sensitive of things that were very important things to the community. Mm-hmm. So I think this is something we need to spend a little time on and figure out instead of slapping out a number here. And again, it's probably not going to affect me. I probably wouldn't have a hard time staying under 12, but some of these things you guys bring up are important. So I don't want to put you guys in a box, but I wish I could just say, y'all, let's all make a motion that we obey and try to fix ourselves a bit. But I hate throwing down an agenda item that's going to affect you probably moving forward.
Commissioner Lober?
All right, I guess without making this circular at all, I do think there's a value as far as putting things on consent. So what I'm going to do, assuming the motion fails, and if it doesn't, then, that's fine. I'm not going to be sad either. I'm not going to support it, but what I intend to turn around and move to do is to limit it to 2 per meeting being added on what we have listed as item E, resolutions, awards, and presentations, without a particular yearly limit, 2 per meeting period, and the rest would have to either go at the end of the meeting after board reports or in the alternative on the consent agenda, with the understanding that whichever commissioner adds it to consent is not to pull that particular item. If another commissioner wants to pull it, that's fine, but I don't think that the commissioner who adds it to consent should use that as a workaround to get past the limit of 2. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm going to be doing. And, as the guy who has the second least resolutions, as I found out this evening, out of everyone here, I don't think I've abused it by any means. I think that's a way to try to respect folks' ability to get things accomplished, but also respect the time that people have and the folks that are sitting in the audience oftentimes for protracted meetings that really don't need to be as long as they are.
Commissioner Pritchett?
I agree with that. Let me just throw this caveat in, though. The chair should probably have a little more flexibility. Again, I might have 15 last year, but probably less than 4 were mine, because there's county stuff that they get thrown at that they have to do.
You want to say an extra 1 per chair or 2 per chair per meeting?
I think the chair will have to have, you'll be chair next year, you're going to have that discretion. You can say, no, I'm not doing that, we got too many, or yeah, we need to do this as a county. A lot of times you'll have them, and it keeps the rest of the districts from having them, but you'll have to determine that. You're not going to hopefully want to do National Turkey Month or something.
Burrito Thursday?
Yeah, so hopefully the chair would have a little bit more discipline.
Yeah, I don't mind even holding the chair to it if I end up serving as chair or not next year. But, my thought is, I hate to leave it open-ended down the road because
But who decides which 2 end up on the agenda? Or is it 2 per commissioner?
Per commissioner.
See, that puts us back in that mess we were in.
Well, it's still a lot better. I mean, our worst-case day is a lot
That's the potential
better.
of 10 per meeting.
Well, it won't, though. We have
Potential.
1 or 2 that do 5 or 6, and that would probably
Yep.
solve all of our problems.
I truly think that's the
Right.
case. And if it
Yeah.
doesn't, and we're still here next year, I'm happy to further restrict it. But I think this is a good step to see if it solves it. If it doesn't, believe me, I'll be more flexible down the road.
I'm probably more apt to lean into Commissioner Tobias' proposal or less than
Yeah,
12.
and if that passes, God bless. I'm not going to support it tonight, but I'm not going to be up at night
Because
if
I
it
think
goes
it
through.
makes people's resolutions more meaningful. And if I want to recognize somebody in the community, I can ask you guys during my commission business, are you okay if you recognize these guys? And,
We vote on it.
And we've done that back in the past,
I
at
don't
least.
mind trying to use the consent agenda a little bit more for my stuff.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
With stuff I do, I'd like to do that. We'll just approve it, and then I'll just take it out to the community.
But then, yeah, we could do that
I
easily.
like that a lot.
But that'll be at least an alternative for those that like to use multiple. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I can't hear Commissioner Pritchett.
That's because I didn't turn the mic on. I just said I would like to be able to utilize the consent agenda. I never thought about that. I'm going to start utilizing that for some things that I wouldn't even have brought as this, that I can take things to the
Right.
community.
How would that work?
The same way we do it, but instead of just bringing it forward with every individual, the commission would just approve it under consent, and that way we could take out the certificate to the person in our own districts.
And that can probably be prearranged prior to the meeting, like when someone calls, because usually it's people calling and requesting the resolution to our offices a lot. And rather than having to tell them, you know, we can't do it, we just tell them we'll bring it to them and present it to them. Can that be something we can waive legislative intent on if commission's okay with the item?
This is just a resolution, so you could build in a waiver in your resolution. So you don't have to waive legislative intent, no.
Okay. As far as if we had a resolution that needed to go on the next agenda, we wouldn't have to do legislative intent for that?
No, no,
Okay.
because it's not an ordinance.
Yeah, I just making sure. Okay. All right, Commissioner Tobias? Anything else you want to add, or are you going to stick with your,
No, I'm going to amend it to your suggestion of 10.
okay?
So a motion to limit the number of calendar year resolutions to 10 per commissioner with no stipulation as the number per meeting, but a total of 10 per calendar year. That would be my motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I'll second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So that fails for that. So do you have any additional you want to add or anything else, or does anybody, I mean, it's Commissioner Tobias' item.
No, I've just never seen so many people that don't want their name anywhere and want shorter meetings, but they want their name everywhere and they want longer meetings. It is just bizarro world up here.
I don't want my name on anything, and I don't
I-
want longer meetings.
I don't want my name solo. I want to be in good company with Commissioner Tobias anywhere my name appears.
Okay.
I do have a motion, if I may.
Okay, Commissioner Lober?
Okay, so I'm going to move, and I'll make sure the clerks are on board with this as well, to limit resolutions to 2 per commissioner per meeting on the resolutions, awards, and presentations portion of the agenda. Anything over and above 2 per commissioner per meeting would have to be added either at the end of meeting, after board reports, or in the alternative on consent, with the understanding that they're not to be pulled from the consent agenda by the commissioner who added them to that particular consent agenda. You guys on board? And then, just before I finish the motion, I see a couple hands. Do you want me to do something differently for chair? I'm happy to keep myself locked in for next year if that's the way that it goes. I don't feel the need to go beyond that, but if you think I need to.
Commissioner Snarty, did you have some
Go ahead.
times that you had more than 2?
I think maybe a handful of times I had more than 2, but it was probably once or twice where there's
So should
things
we
that
just allow the chair the flexibility? You try to
there-
stick with 2, but,
there may have not been necessary for them to be on there.
so it would have been
Yeah.
better for you not to?
What I'll tell you is I don't really want to lessen it or lessen the grip on the chair. I
Okay.
think we should keep it universal, but if you want to, I can tell you right now, my intention's not to go, buck wild if I have the chair position
that.
next year.
Yeah, doesn't matter to me.
So I'll keep it applying to everyone. If I need to get permission to exceed it, then I'll go ahead and do that. Mr. Bate?
If I could suggest, instead of doing it after board reports, because then it's really off the agenda, if we could do it under miscellaneous, under new business miscellaneous at the end. It's at the very end, before we go to public comment and before we go to the board reports. I think that might be the
Okay.
best
Yeah,
way to
I'll
do it.
consider the motion modified with that one change. Yeah, so the only change is instead of saying, as one of the 2 alternatives, pass the 2 per meeting on the front end, we'll put it on miscellaneous instead of after board reports.
I second it.
I'll second that.
I have a second by Commissioner Pritchett. You were too late, Commissioner Smith.
Oh, gosh.
Commissioner Tobias?
Yeah, how I took a little time with a resolution that I had. So we took out fallen, I think, resolution recognizing fallen law enforcement officers and fallen members of the United States Armed Forces shall not be included in this limit. Will yours deal with that as an exception, or no, it will not?
If you want me to, I'm happy to do that, but I'll also tell you for that variety of item, if you want to bring it to the commission in advance, I don't have a problem making exceptions on a case-by-case basis. However you want to do it, I'm not opposed to it. If you want to incorporate it, I'm not opposed to it. If you don't want to incorporate it,
And how in sunshine would that take place?
I think you would do it before the meeting, at the prior meeting. That's the cleanest way that I know.
So a fallen officer would, we'd have to wait a whole meeting prior to that?
Well, the other thing we could do is we could always give it to staff to farm out to whichever commissioner hasn't added them. We can give it to Sally and ask her to do it that way and to contact whichever commissioner hasn't added something. That way, we're not having direct contact with the other commissioner or having a conversation with any particular individual other than staff.
I get it, and I know this is now your agenda item, it is no longer mine, I respect that.
Sorry.
But my intent was to create less staff involvement on all this stuff. It seems like this is just getting more and
Here's what
more
we'll do.
and more.
I think the way to clean that up and to resolve the issue altogether, and this is kind of in keeping with what Commissioner Pritchett said earlier, is we'll make this apply to everyone but the chair. And then I'll just say, send them to me if and when I'm chair, and whoever else is chair, send that variety of resolution to the chair. And then the problem's resolved, and we keep it nice, clean, and easy. So I'll go ahead and modify the motion. I'm sorry. I apologize. I know you guys are trying to keep up over there. But we'll apply that to all commissioners except for the chair.
Second holds.
Second holds.
Okay, second by Commissioner Pritchett. I still think it's too many resolutions. I mean, I'm not saying that your intentions aren't pure, and I understand your intentions, but I thought the idea was to minimize the beginning of the meetings for people waiting to do business. And
I'm going to try to keep it as low as possible. Like tonight, I didn't have anything, so.
I didn't last time.
all right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. That backfired on you, Commissioner Tobias.
I still think it's better than it was. And, like I said.
I don't know, I think it's worse.
No, if
This is
we're,
far worse.
if we're in a bad spot next year, revisit this, put this back on the agenda, and I'll
I know
support
your
it for further
intentions, I think
restriction.
everybody's intentions are good. I just think we have a different scale on what we find is acceptable. Okay, item
Madam Chair,
J3.
I agree with Commissioner Lober. I think we revisit this in a year if it doesn't improve. But I think we probably accomplish what everybody thinks. But I will remind you that one person's dumb is another person's important. So, the commissioners individually are going to make those determinations.
Yes. All right, item J3, Commissioner Tobias. Kind of trouble you're going to get started now? I'm just kidding.
Thank you. Does that last resolution count as a resolution? It's my
Well,
hope.
I think we took enough time to do about 10 resolutions.
Well, my intent was to cut down your 30, Commissioner Smith.
Well, you succeeded. You
So,
succeeded.
year to date. This proposal came about through my conversation my office had with staff on a whole number of subjects. I was seeking information regarding various fees, and I learned that while our Parks Department stopped charging access fees years ago, some cities within Brevard County still charge for things like parking. For example, Cocoa Beach charges just to park at City Hall on certain days and $2.50 an hour at several parks. This weekend, taxpayers will have to pay $7 to use the City Hall parking garage in downtown Melbourne, District 5. There's a plug for the food festival in downtown Melbourne without a resolution there. This includes facilities such as the downtown Melbourne and Cocoa Beach parking garages with county tax dollars were utilized to build. What this means is that the very people that pay for these parks and other facilities are being charged to see what they built, or may have not even had means to visit it at all. Hardworking taxpayers are not able to utilize the fruits of their labor and instead are forced to drive their children somewhere else for the day. To me, again, this is disgusting. Similarly, Representative Randy Fine has filed Bill HB 183, which would stop the Sebastian Inlet District charging those who live in the taxing district for its access. I'm very happy to learn that while we do not engage in this practice, I would like to take a step further. I propose to send a letter to each and every municipality in Brevard County to request that they not charge taxpayers for access facilities. Thankfully, it seems that most municipalities in Brevard County also have stopped charging access fees. So in those cases, I thank them for respecting their taxpayers. On the other hand, some of these facilities the municipalities are charging for are funded in part by county tax dollars. To be clear, the substance of this letter is very limited. It is not a demand, it is merely a request. It only asks that they provide free access to those who reside in the taxing districts whose funds go to those facilities, not necessarily to anyone else. It does not apply to all usage fees, just access fees. For instance, it is understood that municipalities may have to charge for private rentals of pavilions or to host soccer tournaments. So the motion is the board to ratify the letter that I provided in the agenda and direct staff to transmit the letter to all the mayors of municipalities within Brevard County and copy to all the council members. That is the resolution, Madam Chair. Or that is the motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Tobias. Commissioner Lober?
Okay, I like some parts of this, but I dislike more parts of it. That's kind of the most direct way I can say it. There are a couple concerns that I have. And I shouldn't say finished, but just started looking at this to a pretty good degree with respect to Laurie Wilson Park and how we're going to pay for the maintenance of it. And when I look at something like this, there are a few concerns that I have. First is obviously home rule and trying to respect the individual municipalities. If it were limited to municipalities or projects that are in receipt of county tax dollars, I would be a little better with this. But when I look at the concept of it, I try to think of what they're using the funds for, and if it's essentially to upkeep that particular park or area that they're using facility of any variety, the alternative to charging user fees is to raise taxes. And I would rather keep the budget as low as possible, keep taxes down, and have users that disproportionately benefit from using particular facilities shoulder more of the cost. I will tell you with respect to Laurie Wilson, one of the things that we were looking at was giving a break, not obviously just to Cocoa Beach residents, but to all Brevard County residents, either making it free or a de minimis cost to get a decal on an annual basis. I was told, though, that based upon legal's research, there are state grants that we received that would mandate all Florida residents being treated equally. So in that sense, I would expect if the county retains Laurie Wilson, that we would have a break, a substantial break for all Florida residents. But I don't know that I can say that they can't charge at all. I think if they're benefiting that particular facility with what they're collecting, there may be a benefit. I don't know that I can support this in the way that it's written. I think if it were pared down to a degree to reflect only those facilities that are recipients of county tax dollars, I would be more inclined to support it, but not just a blanket request. I think it's perhaps a little overstepping on our part.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I thought long and hard about
Sorry,
this.
it's hard to...
And on the one hand, I can understand where Commissioner Tobias is coming from. I understand the intent, and I really don't have a problem with the intent. But for me, it smacks of Big Brother, and it's another violation of home rule, which is pretty important to most Republicans, and it's certainly important to me. So for myself as a county commissioner to tell municipalities how they should or shouldn't run their municipality, that rubs me the wrong way. And if citizens of a municipality don't like something that the municipality is doing, in this case, i.e. charging fees for parking, they can storm their council meetings with pitchforks and torches and appeal to their council members to change the rule. I don't think it's the commissioner's duty or responsibility for the county commissioners to be telling municipalities how they should be charging or not charging for properties that are within their municipality.
Commissioner Pritchett?
In light of our last discussion with the last topic, Commissioner Lober just pretty said most of the stuff I wanted to say, so I'm not going to repeat a lot of that. Everybody is welcome. A little extra thought on it. I mean, as far as taxes goes, I'm probably more of a user fee girl than charging the whole county for it. And I grant it, you gotta do some of it, it gets things up and going. But people who specifically use the product, I don't mind them having to pay for more of the product. Like Lori Wilson Park, when you brought that up, I'm never gonna go there. So I'd rather you keep my general taxes lower and charge the people that are gonna go park there all the time for using it. So even with the residents, I think so too. If the residents are using it, they should add a little more to it. It's in their area. So my overall theory on that, and I don't know where it fits as far as Democratic and Republican, but I do like the user fee. I like fair taxes, if we could ever get that going too. But I probably like that aspect of it more. So I'm gonna quit now because Commissioner Lober actually said most of that pretty well.
Would you mind?
Commissioner Tobias?
I would be willing to pare down the letter to just the municipalities that use county tax dollars and then charge. Would that be something that would be amenable to the board?
Commissioner Lober?
If it's clear that it applies only to those facilities that are the recipients of county tax dollars, I'd be good with it.
Commissioner Pritchett?
I could be, but the thing is, I'd like to know which one, because I would want to look and see. Let me tell you why. Because if I'm paying partial county taxes with that, I'd rather they pick it more up than raise my county taxes later to pay for what they're not having to pay to specifically use it in their own city. So I understand your aspect, and I do understand how you are in taxes, and I really respect that. So just you bringing this up made me think about it. But that's kind of throwing me off on that other side. So if you could get me something I would look at, I'll give you my word, I would definitely look at that and see if I could figure that out in a way.
I'll give
What you're
you,
doing.
Madam Chair?
Sure.
I'll give you an
Commissioner
example, and I gave one in there. The $7 I'm going to pay to park at the Melbourne parking garage was a recipient of CRA dollars. Or let's talk about the garage that I use when I go to Cocoa Beach and park. That was a recipient of CRA dollars. It's my understanding that these dollars go in there, they build a facility, they have a revenue source that then goes into general fund, and their ability, it's not a user fee, it's a way to pad the general fund of these municipalities off the backs of county taxpayers. So there are two examples of direct recipients of county tax dollars. And talk about user fees, I'm all for user fees. I wish we could charge every person that is in our jails the amount that it costs to do that. I wish that public schools were paid for by the recipients and not everyone else, but that's not the reality of this situation. The reality of the situation is it's up to us to raise taxes. We can't blame it on anyone else. So I would pare this down to the municipalities that receive county tax dollars in one way or another, if that would
That
make
have received and are currently receiving?
that have received or are currently
Okay.
receiving.
I just wanted clarity. Commissioner Lober?
And I just want to make sure as well that the letter specifies that we're making the request as to those facilities that have been beneficiaries or that have benefited from those tax dollars. If they have some other facility that's totally a municipal-only thing, I don't want them to get the impression we're overreaching. So if something's been a recipient of CRA funds, I get it, I'm fine with that, as far as not in terms of that being a great or a terrible thing, but I'm fine with them getting a letter with respect to that. But if it's truly been funded only out of city funds, I don't want to tell them what to do or even strongly suggest what they should do with something that has nothing to do with county tax dollars.
Commissioner Pritchett?
I'm going to have to think through that. Again, not that I won't, because CRA funds, really, it isn't the county giving them money. It's they use it to develop the areas, therefore they start generating more tax funds. So the county never lost tax funds, it's just all the extra funds went back into revitalizing those areas. So I would have to look at the kind of the benefit analysis with that. But again, it's if you got a city, then they have this up and they're in their city, I almost feel like I'm getting a little bit out of my lane now. Now, if you're talking about direct county taxes, we're still continuing to pay, you have my attention. So I kind of have to think through this just a little bit, but not that I won't, Commissioner Tobias. So I will see if I can't get some information on that. But as if it affects county taxes currently. But
to be clear, general fund, $7 million goes to CRAs, so that's not a couple shekels
But Commissioner
here.
Tobias, if they hadn't developed, we wouldn't have those funds anyways. That's just, it's added revenue. You start with your baseline and say, I know we have different philosophies on this, and thank you for always respecting me on that. So, but that's just, my thinking's a little different on that. But I promise you, I'm going to look at this and think through it, because I do have great respect for your stands when you bring these informational items up. They get my attention.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is merely a letter. This is a request, nothing more, nothing less. The city of Cocoa Beach or the city of Titusville, and I don't think Titusville is on here, by the way, can take the letter, burn it, throw it away, and do away with it. I just think it's important that
And they probably will.
Yeah, I have a feeling most likely they will. And to be clear, they're going to get one way or another from my office. It will have a 24-point bold, italicized font that the board agreed upon. But I think that taxpayers paying into a project and then having to turn around and pay for that, whether it came from the county, whether it came from the state, I'm so tired of saying it's federal tax dollars. It's tax dollars that came out of my back pocket. City tax dollars came out of my back pocket if I happen to live in that city. So the reality of the situation is I think we're shirking our responsibility. And I think that the county has taken a very good stance by saying we're not going to charge for you to go to a county park. Chairman Randy Fine said he doesn't want that to happen to the state. I think certainly the cities can follow. So I don't want you to think too much. If you're not comfortable with doing that, I certainly don't want to waste staff's or anyone else's time with this. Just understand something will, and I'll be more than willing to send you everyone a copy of this, but something will be coming out of my office one way or another with the correct size font that we all agreed upon.
Commissioner Lober?
Well, it sounds to me like if you want an extra one voting for it, you may have to table it. If you don't want a closer to unanimous vote or potentially unanimous vote, you may have the support to push it through. Now, I'll support it, again, with the caveat that I mentioned today or a month from now, whenever you want. So
With the
it's up to
county,
you.
with the county thing?
Right, as
I'll
long-
support it with that as well.
Yeah, as long as you specify that you're talking about those specific facilities, not just municipalities that are recipients of county tax dollars, but those facilities that have had county tax dollars go into them or that continue to have county tax dollars go into them, I would support it, but without that, I'm not.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would amend my motion to include only the municipalities that receive county funds as well as to name those specific projects or those specific facilities that receive those funds. So that
I'll
would be
second
my
it then.
amended motion.
Okay. I have a motion, a second. Commissioner Pritchett?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I know I'm asking too many questions. Are we getting any of those funds when they collect them coming back to the county for any kind of, it just goes straight into the city's general fund?
General fund.
Okay, so I'm understanding this, but my question would be is if they didn't do that, are we going to have to pay more county taxes to keep their facility up? Do we have any kind of liability in those things? Are they, any of the county?
We have no say on how they spend their money as far as
I
maintenance on
know-
their own facilities.
So that is just their own, there's nothing off of us with that? Because I know up there, we maintain some parts for the city, so that's, I'm just trying to figure out, because, and I know
But
we
if
all
the
like
city's
user
collecting
fees.
a user fee and they're not maintaining their own parks than we
I just don't want all
are.
of our taxes to go up if we
Yeah.
don't
I
let them
think
charge
we'll be
user
fine on
fees.
our end, at least from my basic understanding of it. We should be
Okay.
fine. If the city's not maintaining their own parks with the money they're collecting from county and municipal residents, then shame on them. But
Right.
hopefully they are. I'm not knocking cities, but I think if I agree with Commissioner Tobias. I really liked this when I saw this. I may have even, supported it the other way, but I like it much better this way, because then I don't want to
Yeah.
overreach either.
I do
So-
that too, except I got to tell you, sometimes I get really irritated when the state boys start putting the hammer down on us for things.
Yeah.
So that's my little bit of my hesitation, because I think that there's going to be some things I agree with that we probably need to discuss, but I don't know, sometimes I get real concerned when we don't stay in our own lane either, because I get really irritated with them when they start trying to, we're here,
Yeah.
so I just
But this
thought
would
we'd
only
throw that
apply
out.
to places that have had county funding. So,
Okay.
yeah. Commissioner Tobias? Is that new or old?
No, old.
Okay, Commissioner Lober?
All right, my last little thought on this is I have a buddy whose son, basically the arrangement they have is if he's working or he's going to school, he can stay in the house. If he does both, great, but he's got to work or he's got to go to school. His benefit is he gets to stay in the house. My thought is this isn't overreaching to the extent that I'd be concerned about where we're telling a city to do with city assets and city resources what we think they ought to do. This is us telling them with respect to projects that either have been or that continue to be funded, at least in part through county funds. You can tell your kid what to do if they want to earn their allowance. You know, it's not being disrespectful, it's not overreaching. This is different than if the kid goes out and works and earns money and they want to spend it in some way. I think they should be entitled to do that. But I think this is a different situation. That's why I'm okay with this, whereas I would not have been okay with how it was worded before.
But the state gives us funding too. And so, you know, it's just,
Well, if
I don't know,
this-
guys, if you really think about it, if you're a city right now, we're just going to irritate the fire out of every city that gets this letter.
I mean,
Well,
why
they
not?
irritate us pretty much too with the
But not
slap in the
every-
face, with a slap in the face with the CRAs with a few of them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
So-
know, but, so, I don't, that should, do you want to just send it to the ones that have irritated us?
The ones where they've abused
I don't
or not
know.
maintained their parks with our
Yeah,
county money? Is that what you're
I don't know.
saying?
I don't know,
It's just an ask.
If-
I don't
if-
think it's overreaching if it's got county funding in
If
the,
the
in the
state paid for
mix.
something and they came and they said, we'd like you to consider doing X, Y, and Z, I wouldn't be offended by
Tell you
that.
what, if you guys, I'm not going to vote on it, but if you guys do, I understand it. I think I'm just turning this into more than it should be right now, so.
You ever
I'm
go
probably
s-
gonna wear you
I
all
don't want to
out.
name the parks, but you go to some parks and you're just scratching your head going, I cannot believe I'm paying this much money to go here or to park or whatever, you know, and it's kind of like, gosh, I live here. Where is my discount? You know, so.
Is the board going to want to see, because it's under the chair's signature, are you just going to revise the letter or, and who is receiving it? Because right now, we have a listing, but understanding what the board's saying, I don't know if it's going to be the same listing.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We'll revise it and send it to the county attorney's office to get confirmation on that, maybe budgeting if they have any additional suggestions, and then send it to the chair for the signature.
I'm fine with that, too.
Okay, I'm okay with that. All right, I'm going to call the question because I don't want to talk
Madam
about this.
Chair.
one. Commissioner Smith?
I just have one comment. I understand where you guys are coming from. I just don't agree. I just can't, even though it's a request, from my perspective, it's just kind of in the face to the cities. But that's just my opinion. And I respect you guys have a different opinion. So we'll agree to disagree.
And I would agree with you as well, Commissioner Smith, if the county didn't have a hand in funding it, I would agree with you 100%. All right, I'm going to call the question for real this time. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2.
So much for voting blocks.
All right. My gosh, that's two I've agreed with Commissioner Tobias on today. Do I get a T-shirt?
No, 2 out of 3 is still a D.
Do I have to give my T-shirt back, Commissioner Tobias?
Yeah. He says you have to give it back. Is it Jerome?
Only if he keeps under 30.
All right. Ooh. Did you hear that, Commissioner Smith? He said
I did
only if you
not.
keep under 30 resolutions.
You got it.
And,
All
and
right.
to be clear, I you know, the elephant in the room is the fact that I recognized a beauty queen, and
Wow.
who was
I didn't say that publicly because I'm nice.
well.
And I didn't say it either. I was thinking it.
And in
Or
fairness,
recognizing other public elected
all beauty
officials.
queens will get resolutions. If we have 13 that come from Brevard County, I will be more than willing to have this pass amended.
Shallow.
Just to be fair.
Yeah. All right. All right, enough silliness. Miss Sullivan, your patience, thank you. Come on up. Moving on to public comments. I'm going to give you this for. I'm going to do that.
Thank you. Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. Oh, lost my,
It's all right, I'll
waiting,
wait.
I lost my thing.
You're fine.
Just 1 second, sorry. Sorry. So I can start talking while I'm finding it. So what happened if we go back to a little bit of history here from 1998 to 2001, the city's Satellite Beach and the county were jointly involved in pursuing FCT, or Florida Communities Trust funds from the state. This is now under Florida Forever Tax. And I would recommend to you guys to pursue this even now for acquiring wetlands, because it's designed for very critically sensitive lands that are very important. So they acquired, it was county lands, and the reason the county was involved is those lands got annexed into Satellite Beach, entrusting them to take care of. At the same time, so in overlapping that time frame, they were negotiating with the military regarding the PUD across the street to do 85-foot condos, which is incongruent with the agreement that was reached for the Florida Communities Trust to create a preserve that was to protect endangered animals, including the green sea turtle, and threatened the loggerhead, an endangered mouse, and the offshore worm reef, to take care of that. So that's why it got that funding, $8.5 million. These were county lands entrusted to the city of Satellite Beach. There is a clause in the agreement that if an entity does not take care of them, they can revert back to another governmental level. I am asking the county to authorize Ms. Bentley to look at these agreements, because I feel that there was, I'm concerned that they were pursuing, at the same time that they signed an agreement that they would protect these lands, and that the adjacent property, I was going to read you from it, but I'll send it to you afterwards. The adjacent land was supposed to be low density. And at the same time that they were getting this $8.5 million, they were negotiating a deal for 85-foot towers across the street from a turtle preserve, or a wildlife and turtle preserve. How they got those monies was a letter from University of Central Florida indicating about it being for endangered mice, and also how important this was to the turtles. This is the largest aggregate turtle nesting area for loggerheads, the area of the beach, in the world.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions, anybody? No. Thank you. You're going to send us that information? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Mr. Abate, board reports?
I have no report.
Ms. Bentley?
No report.
Commissioner Pritchett?
No report.
Commissioner Lober?
I'm going to put Ms. Bentley on the spot here. She didn't know I was going to do this, but I'm going to ask for a report from her with respect to I don't know if it was a garbanzo bean or a chickpea or what it was, but there was apparently a life-saving incident in her office a little while back where Christy, I guess, did the Heimlich on Abby. Is that how that went? I thought about doing this as a resolution because I thought it was really cool that we had one employee save another employee. But then I saw the anti-resolution resolution, and I thought it's probably not good to do as a resolution. I'll just handle it in board reports. But can you kind of give folks a little background on that? I thought it was really cool.
Poor Abby.
Sorry,
That's all I
Abby.
gotta say.
We're happy you're still around.
Well, they were both having lunch at their desks. I guess I'm a cruel boss.
Miser.
They were having, yes. And Abby actually choked, and she was able to get out of her office and over to Christy's office. She couldn't speak, but Christy said, "Do I need to do the Heimlich maneuver?" And they did it, and it saved her. It really did.
Wow. She may need some resolution. That's all I'm saying. Save somebody's
I'm
life
happy
is
to-
pretty amazing.
I'm happy to buy her lunch or something if I don't think there's any ethical prohibition on that by any means. So just have her reach out when she wants, and I'm happy to do that.
I think you need to buy them both lunch because
no beans for
you've
anyone.
embarrassed at least one of them. So.
That's fair. That's fine.
Okay, Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a couple, if we could get one of the AV working up here. I've got a slide. Great. I am getting some construction work done on a condo in Palm Bay, and I submitted the plans, and I got the feedback, and it was $2,241. And I thought that sounded like quite a bit of money on a $60,000 renovation. So I got a hold of permitting here in Brevard County, and I said, hey, listen, if we were to do this in county land instead of city land, how much would this cost? Am I crazy, or does $2,241.25 sound like a lot? And the response I got back was, worst case scenario, $1,003.19. So I don't think we point this out enough of just how hard, not only how hardworking, but what a value you get. And I don't even want to say what a value. Palm Bay could be ripping me off. But the reality of the situation is I was very happy to see that though I'm responsible for the $2,200.
I was saying, do you want to de-annex out of the city? Is that what you're telling us?
You know, I built a home in Brevard County, and the entire permitting for the entire house was about $2,200. So to all the people in that department, thank you for what you do, and clearly you do it for quite a good cost compared to what that same project would be in Palm Bay. So that was a fun little comparison there, and I don't think they get the recognition. So here's another one, and maybe I need to stop reading the paper. I'm sorry about that, but this was about a government CEO that we got $250,000, I want to say incentive. I don't even know what to call it, other than, as someone on this board pointed out, obscene. Captain Murray has been made eligible for a $250,000 bonus because he has, according to the Florida Today article dated October 29th, reportedly been courted by some unnamed private entities. Let me take a moment, though I'm sure he doesn't want to do this, to compare that to the executive branch to ours. Our chief executive has nearly 30 years of work experience for this organization. The Port CEO has 3 years of work experience with the Port, although he did spend some time working for a subsidiary of a company that made flags. Our chief executive has a law degree from Dickinson School of Law at Penn State. I know they had a tough football game this weekend. Theirs obtained a rank of captain, a certification available. I saw this on eBay through Captain in a Box program for $495.
Oh my gosh.
I may be a captain. I'm looking that one up right now. Our chief executive manages a staff of 2,700 people, while the Port has about 200 people. So I did a little math, and if we paid our chief executive based on the number of people that he managed as opposed to the Port, his salary would be $4,121,000. And that is the conservative number. The more accurate number would probably be based on the budget that they oversaw. Our chief executive has a budget of a little over $1.3 billion. The Port is $118 million. You do the backwards math. If we did it based on budget, our manager would have a salary of $5.1 million. All this is to say that we continue to reap the benefits of an absurdly good deal with the county manager. His dedication, work ethic, and competency has been second to none. We cannot thank him enough for the work that he does for this county. There's just, it shouldn't take the wasting of $250,000 for Port Commission to thank you and your staff on a more constant basis. Unfortunately, I'm one of the most stingent. I think John Denninghoff may be slightly more stingy than me, and I really respect that in him. Mm-hmm. But I floated the idea of giving a county manager a raise in the past, and he politely turned it down. And bringing that up with the board, to be very clear. Port commissioner, the Port CEO making 375, but needing another 250 is an absolute joke. It's a travesty. But not to look at this as a negative, I think we should look at this as a positive. Frank and your staff, thank you for all you do, and I'm going to put this in the record. If anyone's curious, the captain in a box on eBay. So if you're interested in doing that, as I may in the future, that certainly will be entered into the record. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate
Maybe
it.
we should put his name on our signs.
Yeah, I would
Yes,
be
there you
all
go.
for that, and
No,
I'd
then
write
they'll
the check
start
to do
calling
it.
Frank.
Yeah.
And finally, I'll end on a positive one here. I'm extremely pleased to be able to report that the board, that Palm Bay Bayfront CRA and the City of Palm Bay City Council ratified the interlocal agreement. This board passed unanimously with no changes. As such, the ILA is now in effect upon record. This agreement provides savings and accountability over county tax dollars while allowing Palm Bay to meet their contractual obligations. Had this not passed, there would have been an item on this agenda invoking our authority to seize the CRA, and I'm very happy to say that that was not necessary. Thanks for the staff, their efforts in securing this agreement, as well as the board for its patience while this was being accomplished. I also want to thank the City of Palm Bay and their efforts to come to this agreement, and I hope the City of Melbourne will look at this as an example to follow, as the O'Galley CRA appears to be the final CRA not to have reached an ILA with the county. And that's it, Madam Chair.
All right, Commissioner Smith?
Well, I think I shouldn't say anything because Commissioner Tobias did too many resolutions just then. No, just in all seriousness, I would like to double up on what Commissioner Tobias said about the port, and also I might caution Commissioner Tobias that he may not want to do another renovation in Palm Bay because next time it might be $4,000. And on my final note, I want to recognize our esteemed chair because this is her. She's completed 1 year, and she's done a great job, and I want to thank her for all her effort.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Commissioner Lober?
I just want to add, since that was brought up, I'd ask that Commissioner Pritchett consider serving as vice chair next year, because my intention is to nominate her for that position come the next meeting. So just think it over, please.
Okay, and with that, I just want to, yesterday we had Veterans Day, and I just want to thank all the veterans serving locally and abroad, and all those that have made the ultimate sacrifice. We are a huge veteran community. We have a lot of veterans that work for this very county, and I am so appreciative. And having family serving overseas, and my husband's retired military, until it's your son that's out of country, you don't really fully appreciate the level of support and the level of anguish that a family goes through. Probably much less than the soldier that's serving abroad, but thank you to the families that sacrifice as well. So that's all I have. Mr. Bate, anything? I'm just putting you on the
ready to go
spot.
home.
All right, meeting adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.